Hello, Algebra 1. Today we are going to be working on Worksheet 3 since I am out. And this is a review of what we were doing right before spring break. So we're going to start off by simplifying the following square root using a factor tree or perfect squares. Remember, you can use any numbers you want as long as they actually multiply to the number underneath the square root. So for 80, I'm just going to use 10 and 8. And then I'm going to continue to break this down. 10 to 5 and 2. 8 to 4 and 2, and 4 to 2 and 2. So we're focused on our prime numbers, which are numbers that don't break down any further. These are them down here, and then I'm looking for pairs. So I have a pair of 2's, circle cross out. I have another pair of 2's, circle cross out. The 5 doesn't have anybody, so the 5 gets underlined. Again, underlines go under the root, and your circles are going to go out front where they multiply together. And if you just want to multiply them right away and go 2 times 2 is 4 and go straight to this answer, that is totally fine. All right, let's try again. Multiplies to 44. I know that's 11 times 4. Now 11 is on the larger side, but it is a prime, so that one's done. 4 becomes 2 and 2. So in this situation, I just have a pair of 2's, circle cross out. My 11 does not have a pair, so I underline it. Underlines go under the root. And your circles go out front, 2 root 11. All right, and one more like this, root 21. I know 7 times 3 is 21, but both of those are primes. So technically what happens is they both get underlined and go back under the root where they just become root 21. So this is it. This is our answer. It can't be simplified any further. All right, so now we're going to solve by taking the square root of both sides, and we're going to give exact answers. So what that means is you're not actually going to be typing the square root button into your calculator. You're not going to get a decimal. We are either going to have some perfect squares or we're going to have to do a factor tree. In number 4, I already have the x squared by itself, so I can go straight to square rooting both sides. Remember that cancels, brings down my x equals. Don't forget your plus or minus. We need that every time we solve by square roots. And 16 is a perfect square. The square root of 16 is just 4. All right, for number 5, before we square root both sides, we're going to need to move that 18 over. Since it's a positive, I'm going to subtract it. And 45 minus 18 is 27. And now that that x squared is by itself, now I can go ahead and square root both sides. Okay, but 27 is not a perfect square. So what that means is I am going to have to go ahead and do a tree. 27 is 9 times 3, and 9 is 3 times 3. So I have 3 3's, which means I have a pair of 3's and I have 1 3 left over. So this becomes a plus or minus 3 root 3. All right, let's try another one like this. Think about it like you're just solving for x. Add your 50 over. Zero plus 50 is 50. Don't root yet. We got to get that x squared by itself. So go ahead, divide by 2 on both sides. Just like normal solving, 50 divided by 2 is 25. And now that we have the x squared by itself, now we can go ahead and root both sides. And square root of 25 is 5. Don't forget your plus or minus. All right, so now we're going to get to some problems that have parentheses. So these are a little bit different. Remember, we've learned how to FOIL. So foiling this out is not going to help. And we also can't distribute that exponent because that's not how it works. What we want to go ahead and do right now is just go ahead and square root both sides right away because all we have is this squared outside of our parentheses. When you do that, we're going to bring down an x plus 4. Square root of 36, don't forget your plus or minus. That's really important. That's a perfect square, so plus or minus 6. Now, here's where we need to be careful. If you forget that plus or minus, that's really going to change our answer. So the plus or minus is with the 6. And now we are subtracting 4 on both sides. Okay, so here's what this is saying. This is saying a positive 6 minus 4 which is a 2, and it's saying a -6 minus 4, which is a -10. All right, so there are two answers, 2 or -10. You want to provide both of them. Okay. All right, let's try that idea again. So I have the squared, there's nothing outside the parentheses. I can go straight to rooting both sides. That cancels the squared and brings down our x minus 6. 81 is a perfect square. This becomes plus or minus 9. Now I'm adding the 6 on both sides. All right, so again, this is positive 9 plus 6, which is 15, and this is negative 9 plus 6, which is -3. Okay, so we have 15 and -3 as our answers. All right, let's try another one. Okay, again, we're going to go square root both sides, but this time 20 is not a perfect square, so we're going to have to do a tree. 4, 5, 2, 2. I'm going to bring down my x plus 3 because, again, the squared got canceled out. Don't forget your plus or minus, and we have a pair of 2's with a 5 underneath the root. Now, this is actually less work than the other problem. When we subtract 3 on both sides, we can't actually combine this 3 and this root. So we're just going to put the -3 in front, -3 plus or minus 2 root 5. Okay, so you want the plus or minus to be in the middle there. And that's it. All right, a little more complicated this time. Number 10, we cannot yet square root both sides, because we have this minus 10 here. So we are going to go ahead and add that 10 over. Bring down my x plus 1 squared. -30 plus 10 is -20. And now that the parentheses with the squared are by itself, now I can go ahead and root both sides. But wait, there's a negative there. What does this mean? It means this is no solution. So there's no need to do a tree. We can't take the root of a negative. So no solution is our answer. All right, let's try this type of problem again. This time we'll actually have to solve it though. So we'll start by subtracting 18 on both sides. We want to move things away from the parentheses with the squared. That's going to give me x minus 5 squared is 30 minus 18 is 12. Now that the squared is by itself, I can root both sides. Bring down your x minus 5. 12 we're going to do a tree with. I'm going to do 4 and 3. And then 2 and 2. This is a pair of 2's. 3 doesn't have anybody. Don't forget your plus or minus. Okay, and finally, to get the x by itself, we're going to add 5 over. And remember, when we write this, we're going to put the 5 first and then the plus or minus in the middle. So this is 5 plus or minus 2 root 3. All right, great. Moving on. We have 3 more. All right, number 12 looks a little different. You have this 2 in front. We are not going to distribute that 2. We can't do that because you have this exponent here. What we can do is go ahead and divide by 2 right now. 60 divided by 2 is 30. Now that your parentheses are by itself here, we can root both sides. But when you go to break down 30, if you look, we get 10 and 3, 5 and 2. That's completely broken down, but you don't have any pairs. So what that means is they're all remultiplying. They're all going back under the root, and it's still just going to be a root 30. Make sure you have your plus or minus, though. Okay, your squared cancels out your root, or your root cancels out your squared, actually. And we have x minus 3 equals plus or minus root 30. Your final step is just to add that 3 over. And again, it can't combine with the root. You're just going to put your 3 first, then your plus or minus root 30. All right, our last 2 problems are going to have all the steps put together. So think about normal solving. We're going to subtract our 18 first. Your 2 is still here. X minus 10 squared equals 54 minus 18 is 36. We are not ready to square root both sides yet. We have this 2 in front that we are going to divide by. X minus 10 squared equals 36 divided by 2 is 18. Now you have your parentheses and your squared by itself. Now we can root both sides. This brings down an x minus 10 equals, don't forget your plus or minus, and with your 18 we're going to do a tree. We have a pair of 3s. 3 comes out. So plus or minus 3, and then 2 doesn't have a buddy, so 2 gets underlined. All right, and then our final step is to add your 10 over. Remember, we're going to put that 10 first, then your plus or minus 3 root 2. And this is your answer. And technically there are 2. It's 10 plus 3 root 2 and 10 minus 3 root 2. Okay. All right, last problem. We're going to start by adding 20 on both sides. Bring down your 3. Bring down your x plus 2 squared. 127 plus 20 is 147. Next, we are going to divide by our 3 on both sides. X plus 2 squared equals 147 divided by 3 is 49. All right, now that your parentheses and squared are by itself, we can root both sides. This cancels. Bring down your x plus 2. Square root of 49 is 7. Don't forget that plus or minus. That's pivotal. Okay? And then we are subtracting 2 on both sides. Remember, this is a plus or minus 7. So this is saying 7 minus 2 is 5, or negative 7 minus 2 is negative 9. Okay, and these are your 2 answers. All right, so here's what you want to do. You want to go show your sub this completed worksheet with all of the work, and they will check you off. And then you have the rest of the period as a quiet study hall. Please make sure phones stay away and that you are quiet and respectful. I truly appreciate it, and I hope you have a great day. Bye-bye.